Welcome to the Hot Spotting Real Estate Podcast. This is a bi-weekly podcast that talks about all things real estate with a splash of real-life topics. So tune in and let's keep it real. Hello and welcome to the Hot Spotting Real Estate Podcast. I'm Mike Tohikian and I have a great guest today, Alexis Volen. How are you, Alexis?
Doing great. Happy to be here. Thanks, Mike.
Awesome. And Alexis is born in Loomis, California. We'll let all the real estate buffs look that up on their own and figure out where that is. But it's in Northern California for a hint. She attended UC San Diego and received a BS in Management Science and a BA in Psychology. And then she received her master's degree from Kelley School of Business. She's married to wife Shauna and has two children, Everett and is it Alden or Alden? Alden? Alden.
Yeah, because after him, we're all done.
I love that. That's great. And they're 4 and 6. And Alexis is currently the COO at CIRE Equity out of San Diego, the San Diego office, right?
That's right.
All right. Welcome. How are you?
Doing great. Yeah. Can't complain. Another good day in San Diego.
You know what? You're so lucky to be down there. I am, I'm in the San Fernando Valley and it's triple digits here today. And I just got back from Phoenix yesterday and it was not fun. And I went with a buddy of mine because we do some investing out there and he's from San Diego. He's been there for 15 years, and he was not. Yeah. He could not acclimate at all, and we had the Hydra hats wrapped around us. Everybody's looking at us like we're weird, and we're like, you guys are weird. 118 hanging out with long sleeve shirts on.
Seriously, I was in Phoenix last week, so I get it.
It's
it was
crazy.
Hot.
Yeah, I can't believe it. But San Diego is a beautiful place. So you have a 4 and a 6-year-old. How's that keeping you sleeping at night and active and energized?
All of the above, a few more gray hairs, but honestly, I think one of the cool things about having kids is it gives, at least for me, an opportunity to reflect and figure out. I've learned how to control my emotions better trying to manage theirs. So
that's so true. Yeah, I have a 6 and a 3-year-old, and sometimes you forget that they're kids, and you're like, all right, I got to take a step back and like just calm myself and just go with it, and then. But it's a lot of fun, but it's very tiring. But that's why we go to the gym and stay in shape. So
exactly, yeah, a stress release for sure.
Yeah. Can you give the listeners a little bit of background about CIRE Equity, and then we could maybe jump into how you got into real estate and your role there as well?
Sure, yeah. So a little background on CIRE Equity. We're a vertically integrated commercial private equity company. So we raise money, we raise money from investors in a REIT. So we have a REIT as of 2019, and then we deploy that money in different commercial assets. So today we're split pretty well between multi-tenant retail and industrial assets. Okay. So a diversified fund, and we still sometimes do one-off deals and raise specifically for separate account deals. But we got our start as a syndication shop back in 2010. Oh, okay. And then in 2019, we took 11 of our assets and seeded the REIT. And so now we have, I want to say I think we might have just passed over 700 million in assets under management, gross assets under management. So
that's amazing.
It's been a fun ride growing the company from when I started. We only had 2 assets to now where we're at.
So you started when it was a syndication, firm, and then now you guys are full on REIT. So you've been there from the inception? Wow, that's very cool. Yeah.
So I've been with the company since 2012. It was started in 2010, and I was the first true employee. It's been fun.
For some of the listeners who I'm sure everybody's aware of what a syndication is and a REIT, but maybe there are people who don't know what a syndication and then the transition to a REIT is. Can you kind of give a brief, example of what a syndication would be and then what the difference is between that and a REIT?
Sure. So for a syndication, when we first started, we'd find one property and we would raise the money from a specific set of investors, and they were only invested in that that one property. Now with the REIT, if you bring in money or you invest with the REIT, you're invested in all of the properties that the REIT owns. So it's more diversified. pros and cons always to each deal. You don't get to hand select one deal that you're really excited about, but you also spread your risk out again, across a lot of different properties. And for us, industries,
Right.
markets. So, we're in Hawaii to Florida, so you're never necessarily concentrated in any single asset.
Right, and asset class, I'm guessing too. And when you're doing a REIT and people are investing in it, is it this isn't a public REIT? This is still a private REIT, right?
Correct. We're still private.
Okay. Hopefully one day you guys are public.
You're already anticipating our growth.
How did you get started in commercial real estate? Is that something you were planning on doing from when you were in school, or is it just something that kind of landed on your lap?
Yeah, so no, it was not my plan necessarily. So my brother and his partner actually founded our company.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and so I guess origins of that is my dad was always entrepreneurial. And so on the side, he'd flip homes just to, as passive income when we were growing up. And eventually he bought some office buildings. And, so as a kid, I kind of grew up around real estate. So it was definitely, as a kid, you never think you're going to end up in the same industry as your parents.
Why do kids fight that so hard all the time?
I don't know. It's true though. You fight it. And so anyway, it was one of those things where I thought I was going to be a teacher or something in math. That's why I got the psych major and then added on management science. And I had worked for a larger company, and it just cubicles, and I grew up with an entrepreneurial spirit, and you just don't realize how all of those influences kind of shape what cultures work for you in an organization. And so being like head down and only being able to touch my widget, I knew that was never going to work for me long term. It didn't help. I graduated in 2008, so it wasn't like there were a lot of job opportunities either. And so, I went out and tried to start my own business. I really hated sales. That was and when you start your own business, half of it is just getting the business. So I happened to just send my resume to my brother to be like, hey, I'm looking to get back into a job. And he was like, our company's growing. We're going to need our first employee, come work for us. And I had a job working at a large company or this startup. And I was like, I know kind of already what's going to be a better culture for me.
Right.
And so I jumped in, not really knowing fully what I was going to get myself into. But it's been one of the best experiences for me just because, I've had a chance to shape something and grow something without having to do the sales. So it was kind of that piece for me that I really was excited about. And then I've always been inclined to math, and so the numbers and the finance side, and then the people relationship side kind of just it fit a lot of boxes for me. And so, it's been really fun to be able to grow my career in real estate and really see what it has to offer.
Wow, that's really cool. It's so funny that I've had multiple people on the show whose parents have done some type of real estate. It might not be commercial or something, and then they always go to school and try to do something else. I think the one right before this, Ken from Dollar Tree, he was the same. Yeah, and then he ends up, doing the family business, and then they come together, and he's in the same industry, and then they love it, So it's great to see that, and I get it as a kid, you want to kind of do your own thing and, find your own course. But it's really cool when it ends up, that you kind of fall into the same tracks where your parents kind of at least put a little seed in, that's what I kind of see it as. So that's pretty cool.
Exactly. So yeah. And our business started with a different start, but it's so interesting that foundation, it's those skills of that you don't realize you're building as a kid. Of, my weekends were, my dad would want to go check on tenants. So we would, hey, we're going to dinner over here, let's just swing by this building and go knock on doors and see how they're doing.
Oh, that's cool.
And so just those little things that they sink in somewhere of how to interact with the tenant and that personal touch. And so some of those skills that you don't realize you're building as a kid just through osmosis, I think that's kind of one of the things that it did for me.
That's really cool. So when you started there at the company, it was brand new. What were you doing then? And then you're a COO now, so that's pretty
Yeah.
interesting. Well, tell us about that story.
Yeah, so when I started, it was basically both the partners, so my brother and his partner, and then our general counsel. So it was anything and everything they didn't want to do. So I was doing our bookkeeping, our front desk. I was doing our first investor relations reporting, um, overseeing our property management vendor, our asset management, pretty much anything except for true underwriting. That's probably the only thing I didn't touch.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then now you're doing a full-on COO. What does that involve, and how many employees are there now?
So I think because of an acquisition, we're now at maybe 49 employees.
Wow.
So yeah, we've grown a lot. So I really was attracted to asset management. So after doing all of these things, asset management was what I ended up growing my career in. And so really the oversight of the properties and the financial performance. And so with that, I saw a need at some point where we were growing, that there was also all the corporate processes, all the people hiring, that piece of it that needed someone to be guiding it. You can't get to 49 employees without somebody interviewing, having good processes, knowing what we're looking for. And so my background of being able to touch almost every department, it's like I know what an AP person does.
Right. You did it.
At some point did it.
Yeah.
You know? And so I've really transitioned into overseeing asset management still and hands-on with property management and construction management. But also really the big piece is the people and processes, similar to like a CPO. So, and keeping our culture as we grow.
That's awesome.
Is really critical.
Very cool. Very cool. I mean, I've been wanting to get into syndication, so this whole story sounds very intriguing to me. So I love it. Can you give us some of the purchase criteria that you guys are going through? Like, are you guys still constantly purchasing? And, what are you guys looking for? Is it, 1 year you're looking for a certain asset class, or is it just kind of looking for the right deal on numbers?
Yeah, so all of the above. So for us with our REIT, we've been targeting, low teen returns. Mm-hmm. And then we also do quarterly dividends, which is, I think, a little bit different than a lot of REITs. It's normally one or the other, and we're able to do both. And give investors exposure to middle market. So, we aren't the buyer. I guess it's easier to say some of the things we're not. We're not the buyer in like super core markets just because of the return metrics we need to hit. So we've been playing in more secondary markets and growth markets. And then for us, maybe just using some recent examples, I think in the last few years we've heavily gone into industrial, and it's stuff that has just a little bit of value add in the industrial space. Mm-hmm. So we're not buying 10-year leases or things like that necessarily. But, a couple of recent examples, we just closed a week and a half ago on a cold storage property, a couple 100,000 square feet in Houston. Mm-hmm. So Houston being a market we've recently expanded in, I think that's our fifth asset now in the last 2 years that we've bought out in Houston. And then we also bought in Victorville, which, if you're not familiar, is in the Inland Empire. And, that's a $67 million asset, single user of Goodyear, 829,000 square feet. So those are, a variety of single tenant, triple net leases to the multi-tenant cold storage on the industrial side. And then to your question of what are we buying? Yeah, we're nimble. So we're trying to catch market dislocation. And we were buying retail because we felt like there was market dislocation as buyers have now moved to retail since offices and some other places can't get them the returns. We've pulled out of retail a little bit more. Mm-hmm. We're very selective. So we kind of flow with where we're seeing market dislocation and where we can get those returns with the least amount of risk.
Wow, that's awesome. let's transition. I wanted to talk a little about, you're an active member of Crew. Can you give the listeners a little bit of information about Crew, what they do, and the importance of the organization within our industry, if that's okay?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love to promote Crew. So Crew is commercial real estate for women. I think one of the misnomers is that it's for women only.
Mm-hmm.
There are male members as well, and I think it's anybody who wants to be an ally and advocate for women. And so I think the original founding members of Crew, it was really about creating access for deals and a network, because real estate has been historically heavily male dominated. It was being able to provide, hey, I've got this deal. Can you introduce me to the right people? And so just trying to expand and open networks for others. So there's a lot of focus on deal making and how you can do that. And then I think one of the things that I'm most drawn to and where I sit in Crew is on career outreach. And kind of going back to my origin story is like, I know I'm fortunate and privileged enough to have had exposure to real estate as a kid growing up. And so I oversee the career outreach programs for Crew in San Diego. And so we go into high schools and colleges and talk about the career opportunities in commercial real estate. And
That's very cool.
Really trying to pull in more people, and if they don't have that same exposure like I did, making sure they at least know it's an option.
Right. That's a national organization with chapters all over the country, right?
That's right. Yep. And not only over the country, it's in other countries now too.
Oh, okay.
So Canada, wow. Mexico, and there's a few others that I'm not aware of, but I know we had someone from, I think, Singapore come to the last event. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's been refreshing to see, I started 20 years ago in the industry, and I was primarily, in the retail side. It was very male dominant. It still is, but I mean, you would see a couple random, women and in the industry, and they're still around, which is great, but that has multiplied like massively, which is great to see,
yes.
Especially as a girl dad, and exactly like, your dad who wants their kids to go into his industry of real estate. It's good to see that has changed and shifted, and, anything that I could do to help. I didn't know that, they accept male members. Maybe I should look into that, and I would love to promote and help, Crew as much as I can, as well. Yes. So I did not know that. So that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the places too where I still think there's opportunities because, I didn't get here without male mentors. My boss, who's one of the founders, not my brother, the other one, I mean, he's been my mentor and sponsor. And so because the industry is still male dominated and a lot of men hold the power seats, we need those people in Crew to help provide and open their networks too. So yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the biggest misnomers on Crew is that it's only for women. And I'm not going to say you're not going to walk in and feel uncomfortable because you're surrounded by women, but that's also like,
well, I mean, that's a good, I mean, I think I should embrace that because, women have been feeling uncomfortable for many years walking into an all-male room. So I think that's fine.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's good perspective of what it feels like to do that. So you're exactly spot on. So yeah, I would love to see you at a Crew event.
That's awesome. Well, cool. I mean, it's a very interesting story. I wanted to transition into this segment, which is Alessandra Wants to Know, and it's where my 6-year-old, soon to be 7-year-old, has some pre-recorded questions, and we get to know a little bit more about you on a personal level. All right?
Amazing.
So here we go. Here's question number 1.
What are some of your hobbies?
Great question. First of all, playing with my kids and whatever imaginary game they've come up with. But besides that, I love to work out, and I love anything outdoors. So hiking, rock climbing, snowboarding, skiing. If it's outside, I've probably done it.
That's awesome. I'm the same way. I love being outside. And San Diego's a good place to be outside.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's hear the next question.
Do you have a favorite sports team?
Ooh, yes. The Sacramento Kings for
Sacramento
NBA.
Kings? My
Die hard
rivals.
through and through. Yeah, no joke. Los Angeles Lakers, I can never get behind them, so I'm sorry.
I know, that's fine. Sacramento and LA had some great rivalries. And, I mean, you guys did pretty well last year, so I'm hoping you guys have another good year. It's fun to watch.
That's what I'm hoping for sure.
Right. All right, let's hear the next question.
What is your favorite food?
Ooh, good question. Favorite food would probably be any Japanese food, sushi. Yep, that's definitely my favorite.
Sushi's always, one of the top answers here.
I'm glad I'm fitting into to that.
Here's the next question.
If you can live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Oh, well, I mean, I think I might be in it. It's San Diego. But I always play out if I'm banned from San Diego or California, where would I live? And I think, so after college, I went and lived in New Zealand for a year. And so I would be happy to go back and live there.
Wow. Where'd you live, in Auckland or somewhere, another
On the South Island, I lived in both Nelson, which is like where the Marble Town and a lot of the Sauvignon Blancs come out of, so wine region, and Wanaka, which is near Queenstown, a little ski town.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
All right, New Zealand.
Yeah.
We've never had that answer before. That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you coming on, taking the time. I know you're busy. If people want to reach out to you guys, whether it's to invest in the REIT or connect with you and network with you, what's the best way to connect with you? Is it LinkedIn or an email, which we can always put in? You let me know.
Yep, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so feel free to shoot me a message on there. I would say that my emails get spammed pretty, a lot. So I
like
never know if
else.
somebody's reaching. Yeah, so I think LinkedIn's probably the best way to get my attention, and I normally accept everybody on LinkedIn. So yeah, reach out to me on there would be great.
Great. Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, and I look forward to meeting you in person, and, I'm going to try to reach out to Crew and see what I could do to help also for that organization. So I appreciate it.
I love that. We're happy to have you, Mike.
All right. Thanks, Alexis.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Bye. Just a reminder, please take the time to subscribe to this podcast and leave us a rating and review. It's greatly appreciated. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Hot Spotting Podcast. If any listeners have any questions or topics they would like to hear on the show, or if you simply want to connect, you can email me at mike@hotspotproperties.net. Once again, thank you for listening. It's been real.